Shabbat Shalom, Mishpacha. And thank you first to one of our members who said that there was some problem with the audio sound, and I think I narrowed it down this week to a audio booster that I had running on my laptop. So what I've done today is I've disabled it so that it doesn't run in the background, because normally I run it to increase the volume, on certain applications. Sometimes the volume is very low on the laptop, and I don't have external speakers, and I don't all the time, I don't always use a headset. So when I'm just listening to the sound, I have to use that. So that is why apologies if you have struggled understanding the sound. Hopefully every time now I make the lecture, I'll make sure that the audio enhancer is switched off. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so coming to the Sabbath lecture today. Before we get into the lecture today, just briefly what's been going on the air. You may have already heard this at your end, in different countries where you live, that there was a couple of, last week there was a couple of what they describe as earthquakes. I think one was around 4 something in Iran, and one was around 5.5, somewhere there. And it is believed that Iran may have conducted a underground nuclear test. Now, I already said this my last lecture, or maybe the previous one, that I said that Iran initially did not have no intention to produce a nuclear weapon or a nuclear device, but of course, seeing that if you don't have a nuclear device, you get attacked. We saw that in Iraq, we saw that in Syria, we saw that in Libya. All these Muslim leaders that were told to the world were dictators, and they were basically removed one by one, and their countries were turned over to, my goodness, chaos. And then we find that the countries that have the nuclear weapons, like North Korea and India and Pakistan, they are not attacked easily because they have a deterrent already in place. So it appears, according to the current situation, that if you have a nuclear weapon, your country is more safer, and it is better to have a nuclear weapon. And I personally, as a teacher of the Torah and as a rabbi, I do believe, I've always advocated that countries, of course, there's a moral issue, there's a justice issue, there's all sorts of issues that countries have regarding their people and their laws and their different ethnic populations. But I have always believed, myself personally, that you have to have a deterrent, nuclear or otherwise, a really strong deterrent, because if you do not have a strong deterrent, you are going to be crushed by somebody else more powerful than you that doesn't like you. But if that somebody else more powerful than you or not, if they don't like you and you have a deterrent, a nuclear device, they will think 10 times before they attack you. So I do believe in that in this day and age, that you have to have it. And to have it doesn't mean that you are mad enough to use it, but it does mean that it gives you certain amount of safety. Listen, let me give you a simple example. If you were a trained boxer or a trained martial artist, and you could break 6 people's legs, and I was there, by the way, and I'm still there. If I could break 6 people's legs and arms if they attacked me, what are the chances that they would attack me in the first place? They will think 10 times before they touch me. And that was the situation back in the UK when I was living there. Everybody knew that I was a taekwondo champion at the time, and no one would touch me because they knew that they could get their bones broken. Now, if I was just somebody on the street, minding my own business, walking around, then anybody could attack me because, hey, how is he going to defend himself? He doesn't know any martial arts. He is just another person. We can, 3 of us can overpower him, and that's it, and that's that. And that's what happens in the world. In the real world, that happens. So just as I believed in making myself a champion fighter, I believe that we have to have a deterrent, and I believe Iran has every right to have a deterrent in this particular situation. Now, I'm not going to debate here who's right and who's wrong, because this is not the debate. I believe that every country has to have their own deterrent, and I think that's basic, plain simple. So now coming back to the question of war and the current situation in the U.S., the president, the rest of the people, and so on and so forth. I would simply, to people, those people who love the Torah, those people who love the laws of God, those people who try to do them, my suggestion to you is stick to the laws of God. Love yourself, first of all, love yourself, and then, on top of that, you love God. Now, people might say love God first and then love yourself. I won't say that. The reason why I won't say that is because if you don't love yourself first, then you're not incapable of loving God, who is unseen. So you have to love the seen first. If you can love the seen, then you can love the unseen as well. But if you can't love the seen, you cannot love the unseen. Yeshua, Jesus, before he left this earth and he went up, he left a message for his followers, his disciples, and those people that loved him. He said to them, love one another. He said, I leave you a new commandment, or you could call it not a new commandment, but a renewed commandment. I leave you a renewed commandment, love one another. In other words, we have to remove personal hatred for each other, because this is one of the problems that occurred in the Second Temple, was that people hated other people. The Jews at the time hated the Samaritans, and maybe the Samaritans didn't like the Jews, and maybe there was other people there that didn't like the Jews and didn't like the Samaritans. So there was a lot of hatred. And there were factions within the different sects of Judaism. And those different factions hated each other. They didn't like the different leaders. So what happened was, then, when the temple was destroyed by the Romans, then the different rabbis at the time, when they were asked, what is the cause of destruction? And they said, because we hated our brother. And that kind of explains what hating each other means. Now, coming back to the war, as the war progresses, and I think that you have seen, pretty much a censored version of the news that they are showing you in the different European countries, America, being the West, Australia maybe, New Zealand, etc. But a lot of news is censored, so you're not being shown the live pictures from Israel. And Iran, there's a few reporters there that bring out the news from there. Some of the pictures are appearing from Iran. I actually saw a Pakistani family that was living on the outskirts, maybe on another city adjacent to Tehran, and they were talking about the lifestyle there. Looked like a clean city where they were living on the outskirts of the city, like almost like what you might call a village type location, and they were there with their family, and they were showing that we are growing. They were growing their little vegetable patch, and how it is. You grow your tomatoes and your potatoes and your cauliflower and all that. So they were kind of showing that they were growing it, but they were also talking that in the petrol stations, gas stations over there are queues. People are queuing up, and the guy was talking about that his dad went to fill the car up with the gas, but there was just the queues were too long, and he came back and didn't fill it. So yes, they do have a little bit of a panic going on in Iran, where the fuel, Iran has a lot of fuel and much cheaper prices than us, back in Europe and back in the US, much cheaper than that. So, Iran did a few things. I guess maybe maybe there's supply issues or whatever, or because of the war, other things are going on. But I do know that a lot of, because I believe that certain nuclear plants were struck in Iran, and I'm not sure of how much damage they have. I think the damage isn't extensive, but there is some damage. But there is possibly airstrikes possibly on their fuel, which again not a lot of news coming on that. But what Iran did, Iran shipped all its fuel into Pakistan. Yeah, you might not know that, but I know that. So what they did, they sent all their big lorries full of fuel into Pakistan, because they said, listen, if we leave our lorries standing over here, and if we leave our fuel in the in the big tanks, Israel might try to strike the fuel and destroy it. It's best that it'll be safer in Pakistan's territory. So they shipped all the fuel. Yeah, my goodness, hundreds and hundreds of big lorries carrying fuel are parked in Pakistan, different depots. That's what Iran did, and I thought to myself, that's very smart, very very smart thinking of Iran to do that. So that's basically one thing that I know that has happened. Other than that, I think that America, the president of America, as you may have heard, he is saying that he's going to decide on the war, but actually he's already in the war. He's going to decide nothing. He's already in the war, so he needs to stop lying to the people, and he needs to come clean that he is already involved in the war. He's already supplying bombs, missiles, bullets to Israel. He is supplying, fuel tankers. Germany is supplying fuel tankers to refuel in the air. UK is supplying bases in Cyprus. And so all of these things are going on. So I think that these nations should stop misrepresenting the truth and come out honest and to their people, and tell them that what they are doing, which is very simple. I've always thought, right, and I could be wrong, but I've yet to be proven wrong. I've always used to think, I used to hear different people say different things about the Democrats, but to be honest, my observation, I'm only going to talk about my observation, and those of you who live in the US, you'll have your observation as well. One thing I found, my observation was that doesn't matter what the Israeli government does, whether you have a democratic government or whether you have a Republican government, they are both the same in terms of their support and loyalty to the Zionist people in Israel. Whether they're doing right or wrong, and this ex-president of the US, Bill Clinton, I've always respected that man, and a lot of Republicans hate him, and I don't know why they hate him. Maybe because of Monica Lewinsky, remember Monica Lewinsky, all the things that came out. But I don't hate him, okay? I don't. And I simply, heard a statement from him, and he made such a beautiful statement. And let me see if I can play that statement. I don't know if I will capture it over here or not. Let me just see.
About negotiating peace in the Middle East, because the Israelis have no intention of, under President and the Prime Minister Netanyahu, of giving the Palestinians a state, and now they're too divided and crushed to organize themselves to achieve it. So when President Trump apparently agrees with that they shouldn't have a state. But you don't want a disaster either. And
okay, I don't know if you heard that, but what he basically said, ex-President Bill Clinton, what he said was that the government in Israel, they don't want the Palestinians, or Benjamin Netanyahu he was speaking about, and his cabinet, they don't want the Palestinians to have a state. And he was saying that the President of the United States aka Mr. Trump, he also agrees with that. In other words, he can speak from the two sides of his mouth, but he also doesn't want them to have a state. And I would probably say the same thing is true for the United Kingdom and Europe probably. That European countries like France, Germany, they too also don't want the Palestinians to have a state, although they might say, oh, two-state solution, but some of those countries may be in favor and others are not in favor. I have always said this, and I will stick to my statement. I'm never going to change it. The Palestinians, the area that they live in today, or what's been given to them, the West Bank, Gaza, especially Gaza does not belong to Israel. I don't care what passage they're going to cite you from the Torah and what they tell you, but historically, I have given you many times before that Gaza, although was captured in the distant past by the then people who called themselves from the different tribes. They didn't call themselves Jews, by the way, so let's make that clear. Those people did not call themselves Jews, they were called the children of Israel. Those children of Israel did capture Gaza, and the Gaza was a place where the Philistines lived, but that place was lost back from them. In other words, they captured it, they never inhabited it, and then later it was lost back, and the other people got it back. So Gaza and history, moving forward, future history will show you, and I've been saying this for the last 5-6 years, that Gaza will never be occupied by Israel. I don't care what Israel does. I don't care how many gymnastics they do. I don't care how many lies they tell you. I don't care who comes into government and what, information they try to, jig up and say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Gaza will never belong to Israel. And if Israel tries to take it by force, as Israel is, and they're trying to kill the Palestinians there, and the children and the babies and the women and the men, and then they, to them everybody is a terrorist, which is not true. There are people over there that are fighting for their part of the land, they are freedom fighters. I personally do not see Israel ever keeping a hold of that state of Gaza. Yes, they can probably occupy it for a time, but then a time will come that they will be forced to leave it. And you will see that I will be proven true in that. I don't care how many countries side with Israel. I don't care, the whole world can come and side with Israel. But when God intervenes, and I believe fully, and I trust God fully, that God at this point is using Iran to punish Israel. I believe that. Because we've had this before. This is not the first time that Iran punished Israel. We were punished back in the Persian Empire when, the children of Israel, they misbehaved, they didn't listen to God, they broke the laws, and then God sent the Persians in, and they kicked our backside, and, they took us all as slaves. During the Persian Empire, then, after that, the Medo-Persian Empire, meaning that first, you remember Cyrus, who helped in the temple, and you remember the other kings, and you also remember Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar didn't come from Iran, he came from what today is known as the Iraqi parts, and he even took slaves, and he even kicked the backside of Israel. If the Talmuds are to be believed, the Talmud tells us that he was a midget, that Nebuchadnezzar was very short in height, that he used to ride a lion, and he used to, do different things like that. But again, I don't know if that statement is true, that he was a midget. But I do know this, that we were punished by God, the great I Am, through the countries of Iran and Iraq in the past. And to this day, our people have not fully returned from those countries to this day. We still have many children of Israel in Iran and Pakistan. Pakistan, by the way, was part of the Persian Empire in the past. So, you can wait and see. But I wrote many years ago in the books that the Persians will shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That's going to cause economic shakedown of many nations in the Western European areas. So all these people that are today shaking hands with Benjamin Netanyahu and congratulating him for murdering and killing innocent civilians, they will be sorry one day when their own nations, they look for oil, and oil is far away to be seen. Because when Iran shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, that will send down economic shockwaves in all the European countries, every country, because they don't have their own oil. America, on the other hand, has their own oil, so the story for America is different. America doesn't have to depend on oil coming from that side of the world, but they still buy it. You might be surprised to think, you might be thinking, hey, but we have our own oil. Sure you do. Yeah, America has their own oil and gas, but they still buy oil from the Arabs. Why? Well, I think I spoke about that. The quality of oil is much better and also is cheaper. So there's two reasons, quality and cheapness. So America still buys oil from there, even though America has its own. Probably because America wants to save its oil for a rainy day. I think that's the thing that they're trying to do, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. They can do that. That's fine. No problem. Now in chapter 15 of John, if we come back to the chapter of John here, John 15, we are told that I am the true vine and my Abba is the farmer. Every branch in me that bears not fruit, he took away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, that he may bring forth more fruit. Now you're already clean through the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As a branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can except you abide in me. Now, talking about fruit and fruit trees, or just trees in general, I don't know if you're aware that if you were to hold a tree, touch a tree with one of your hands, left arm or right hand, whichever hand, then you put your feet, naked feet on the ground, that is like, it has to be, with the grassy ground. If you do that, what you're going to find, it grounds you. And this experiment's been done by different individuals, and you'll find it on social media where certain individuals, there was one guy who was asking his little son to hold a wire that's connected to the measuring meter, and the little lad, he was touching the tree, and he was putting his feet on the ground, and he said, look, when he steps his feet onto solid ground, concrete, his feet, and he holds the wire, there is no registration of any electric in his body going to the ground. But soon as this little kid, he touched the grass with his feet, it started to register voltage on the voltmeter. So that experiment, this guy showed. Then another guy, he showed an experiment where he would touch the tree with his left arm or right arm, and it would register voltage on the voltmeter immediately. And because what it does, the tree gives you ions, and it removes all your negative electricity, i.e. it grounds you to the ground, and then the ground gives you perhaps fresh ions, because we are electrical energies. We are energies. We are energetic bodies, and we are projecting this world that we live in. We are projecting it from our brains. So this is where manifestation law comes in, that we have control over it. If we know how, we can then project, what we want. And if you notice that if you want to manifest, then you would do the visualization or the imagination or the affirmations whichever method suits you, whichever method you choose, then that method will yield results for you, because for some people, they find that speaking the affirmation is, more suited to them. They don't have a problem speaking an affirmation 10,000 times or more, and it's more suited to them, and then they can manifest through just speaking. I think it was, what's her name? Sammy Ingram. Yeah, Sammy Ingram was one of the YouTubers that said that she was also one of the people that had a hard time visualizing. So what she did, she would speak. She would robotically speak her affirmation, and that's how she would manifest. So she said, I manifested my whole life, what I do today, my family, my current call it job, or career, everything. She said she manifested through robotically speaking the affirmation, because she said that I could never properly imagine, but I can speak, so I use that to my advantage. So like I said, for some people, maybe if you speak the affirmation, there might be more power to you. For other people, maybe they get tired of speaking it, so more power to them if they imagine it. And then another people, they say, well, I can't be bothered to imagine, and I can't be bothered to speak. It's too much work. Maybe for them, scripting, like maybe they write it down and it manifests for them. This is why I encourage you to maybe you test out the different techniques and see which one suits you. But I found that writing down just a list is very powerful. If you just write a list of items, items that you desire in your life, anything really, even shopping list. Like you go to buy tomatoes, you can write down tomatoes. You go to buy candy, chocolate, you can write down chocolates. You go to buy, eggs, write down eggs, butter, whatever, you just to writing it down means that when it comes into your life, you can see that it happened. It encourages you. It propels you forward. But if you write something and it doesn't appear, then you're going to be discouraged. That's why it's encouraging to write it down and let it manifest. And you might say, well, an egg, I can just go buy a dozen eggs. Sure, but still a manifestation, because you thought about it in your head. Listen, you did not have to do hard work to produce those eggs. What I mean by the hard work is you did not have to labor from 9 till 5 to produce the eggs, because if you labored from 9 till 5, you won't just buy eggs, you'll buy many other things from that day's wage. But let's consider that if eggs were $4 or $5 for a dozen, I know the rates keep changing in America, but let's just say if there were $5 or $6 for a dozen eggs at Walmart, and you happen to go and buy a dozen eggs because you wrote it down on your list, 1 dozen eggs. And 3 days later or 5 days later, after you wrote your list, you go buy the dozen eggs. Now, you did not have to do hard work for it. My point with that is, you did not have to climb a mountain. You did not have to maybe leave your city, go to another city and work there for, 15 hours or whatever. But this is a small manifestation. Or a cup of coffee. Maybe a cup of coffee in America is about the same price as eggs. If you go to Starbucks and you say, I want a cup of, latte, then maybe you pay $6 for it, right? And you pay $6 for a dozen eggs. So you might say, hey, the coffee is about the same price. So sure, yes it is. But my point is that when I say you don't have to work hard, I mean that maybe another appropriate example would be that the wife that you're married to, or the girlfriend you're with, you did not have to work hard to find that girlfriend or find that wife. It came to you. She came to you naturally. Maybe you met her in a mall. Maybe you met her online. Maybe you met her at a dance party or at some other party. But you met her and you came into a relationship with her, but you did not have to work hard. Also, if you wanted to have a child with that wife, you did not have to work hard to produce that child. In other words, you made an intention, you made a decision, you and your wife might have made a decision and said, we want to have a baby. And then, 3 months later, 4 months later, or whatever time period, your wife got impregnated, and then, the next year you had the baby. So you did not have to work hard to produce the baby. It occurred naturally as a decision because you loved your wife and she loved you, and then you produced that child as a result of your love. So the power is in the decision. The power is not in producing the baby. The power is in the decision that you made to have that baby. So the baby would have never come if you never made the decision. So where did you make the decision? In your head. You made the decision in your head, in your heart. You made the decision to have a child. And then you probably in your head did some imagination without knowing it, unconsciously. Unconsciously, you might have heard the sound of a crying baby or seen the picture of a small child, and you thought, one day I'm going to have my own child like that, small baby that I'm going to nurture, I'm going to bring up. So you produce that child. So it's not about hard work. We have been lied to by the world that tells you that you have to work really, really hard to do something. Or they'll tell you, in order to succeed, you have to work really, really hard. And I can tell you point blank that is not true. Sure, you have to put the time in. Okay? You do have to put the time in. Like if you're affirming, you have to put the time in. If you're writing, scripting, you have to put the time in. If you're imagining, you have to put the time in. Yeah, that part you have to do. You can't get away from that. But to say, I worked my backside off to produce this, I think that would not be true. I can tell you that in the days when I lived in the UK in the past, when I was driving a cab, early days when I was studying and driving a cab, I sometimes worked, my regular hours were 18 hours a day. And so I could say that I worked very hard. I worked 18-hour days. Most days I worked 18 hours every day, most days. But that hard work did not make me a millionaire. Let's be clear on that as well. That hard work that I did only was able to feed my family, month by month or week by week. And then I have to go and do the same thing again the next month, and then the same thing again the following month. In other words, hard work does not equal millionaire or lots of money. It doesn't equal that. So this lie that you're going to be rich through hard work is a biggest lie on this planet. I would refrain from believing it. You have to just decide how much money you want. Yeah, you have to decide how much money you want. Not how you're going to get it, just how much. How much money would you desire to have a month? Is it $5,000? Is it $50,000 a month? Is it $100,000 a month? What do you desire to have as an income? Write it down. Put it on your list. And then living in the end means, or the feeling the state simply means that you have to accept that you can produce that money. If it's $50,000 a month, that you can produce $50,000 a month, you have to accept it. Means that now you have the faith to produce $50,000 a month. Sure, you might say, I've never earned $50,000, and sure, I'm not saying that you do and you did. I'm saying that you have to align yourself, your vibration and your frequency have to match to the person that produces $50,000 a month. So that's not about hard work, it's about alignment. Once you write the goal down, now you align yourself. And when you align yourself, you simply wait, you continue to believe, and you continue to either you do your robotic affirmations if that suits you, or you do your visualization if that suits you. Whatever method suits you, you continue to see that in your imagination. You continue to walk. You continue to walk like a rich man. That's very, very important to your desire being manifested. So you have to align yourself now. And you got to be careful of certain words that you speak. For example, let's say that you want to buy, I don't know, I'll use the example of a phone. Let's say you want to buy a phone and it costs $1,000 or $1,100, iPhone or something. Okay, so it costs you $1,100 something dollars, and you look at the phone and you say to yourself, that's too expensive for me. That's what you should not be doing. Because if you do that, now you killed your manifestation. Because you allowed yourself to first, believe that you're going to get a phone, then you negated yourself by believing that it's too expensive, means you're never going to get it now. Because you negated your initial decision to buy it by saying that it's too expensive for you. So how do you handle that? You handle it, but when you see the phone for $1,100, and you decided on buying it, and maybe you've written it down, or maybe you have it in your head as a thought, you got to nurture that thought. You got to keep, when you plant a seed in the ground, you just water it. You don't keep digging the ground every day to look how far the seed is. Is it growing? Is it growing? You don't do that. You just water it every day. Same way you water your thought. You continue to spend a little bit time every day, maybe 3 minutes every day, at focusing on that phone, and you get a feeling of holding it in your hand. How would it feel like holding an iPhone in my hand? What would my wife be saying? Or what would my cousin be saying? What would my friend be saying? Those kind of things you got to bring in. You got to imagine that you already have the phone, it's yours, and your wife, maybe she's saying, hey, that's a nice iPhone. Maybe your cousin, he comes visiting and he looks at you having an iPhone. He says, oh, that's a nice iPhone. iPhone, what is it? iPhone 16? And you might say, yeah, it's iPhone 16, etc. So when you see the price of an iPhone at Amazon or Apple website, and it happens to be $1,200 plus taxes, you don't say, oh, that's too expensive for me. No. Even though it might be now, because you may not have the money right now to buy it. What you will say is this. You'll say, $1,200 plus taxes? Yeah, that's a nice price. Yeah, that's a good price for the phone, and I can buy it. Yeah, I can buy that phone. I can have it, so it's no problem. So you got to tell yourself that phone has a nice price. It could be a phone, a car, a house, whatever. That's a nice price, and yeah, I believe that is the correct price for the phone or whatever it is, and I can buy it. I can buy it. I've heard of many people out there on social media saying that they wanted to get a house, but they did not have the money. So they went looking at houses. And when they looked at houses, they did not have the money to purchase that house. They did not have the deposit. They did not have the loan. But when they continue to look at the house, they continue to build that seed, they continue to water that seed in their head, then slowly, it took maybe several months that they got the deposit money, and they got the money to get that house. They got the deposit and the loan, and they bought the house. So similarly for the phone, or whatever it is that you're desiring, a phone, a job, or whatever, would you rather be telling yourself that I am working for XYZ and it's a nice place and I like the job, I love it, or a business, I'm doing XYZ business, I like it, I love it, it's great. Would you like to tell yourself that? Or would you like to tell yourself, oh, I don't think I can work in that place, it's too hard to go there, it's too hard to get that job? No, because you are not going to self-defeat yourself by first writing it down that you want something and then defeating yourself by saying, oh, it's too difficult to get it. So don't do that. Make sure you never do that. Don't allow your mind to be convoluted with the wrong kind of assumptions. Your assumptions is what makes your world. So when we find in chapter 15, when Yeshua Jesus is saying that every branch in me that bears not fruit, he took away. Who is the he? Think about it for a minute. Is it Jesus who took it away? No. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, that he may bring forth more fruit. Now, who is the he? I think that most of you will think that the he in the first part of the paragraph is Jesus, and the second part of the paragraph is Jesus also. Well, if Jesus is cutting his followers, let's come to a little bit interesting ground here. If Jesus is, take one of his followers and Jesus kicks him out because he pruned him away, and another follower that Jesus liked and he kept him, well, then Jesus is divided against his own house, isn't it? Didn't Jesus say that Satan, he said that person who's divided against his house can never stand. Didn't Jesus say that? A divided house cannot stand? Well, if Jesus is doing it, then Jesus cannot stand. His house cannot stand. So you got to be very careful how you read that statement. Every branch in me that bears not fruit, he took away. Who is the he? Well, how about Satan? Doubt, frustration, fear. That's the he that took it away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it. Well, it's not Satan who prunes it, it's Jesus. So the first he does not apply to Jesus, but the second he applies to Jesus. So if you are the branch that's going to bear the fruit, which is what you're meant to do, Jesus is going to prune you. Then it says, now you are already clean through the word which I have spoken to you. So who is he speaking to? The people who keep the word. And what is the word? The word of God. Where is the word of God, by the way? I'm not talking about the written word of God in the Torah or in the Bible and the New Testament. I'm not talking about that. This word that Jesus is speaking about is your mental conversation. Now you are already clean through the word which I have spoken to you. Well, let's elaborate this a little bit more, mysticize it a little bit. Mystical interpretation of this is the mental conversation. If mentally, every day, if you wake up in the morning and you write your list and you say, $200,000 job, a new iPhone, a brand new car, a brand new house, maybe 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, and then the rest of the day, after writing those things down, you have your breakfast with your family, and then the rest of the day, your mental conversation is, that job is too difficult, that house is very far away and very expensive, that telephone is so expensive. So if the rest of the day you continue to bombard your mental conversation with negative answers, do you think you're going to manifest? Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can you except you abide in me. Yeshua Jesus here is saying that you have to trust in him. He is already trusting you. He doesn't need to trust you. He's already trusted you. You have to trust in the Master. If you trust in the Master, that means you abide in him. That's called faith without seeing. Well, if you're going to have faith without seeing, because you probably haven't seen Jesus in real life. Most of us haven't seen him. Sure, I've heard him, but I haven't seen him in any picture, in any physical form. So, if you're going to abide in him, he already abides in you. That means my trust must be 100% in Jesus, Yeshua the Messiah. My trust must be 100% in him, so that I can bear fruit. Because where does He reside? He resides in me. Where is the kingdom of heaven? He's in the kingdom of heaven. Well, where is the kingdom of heaven? It's in your skull. That's where the kingdom of heaven is. If the kingdom of heaven is in your skull, then that's where Jesus is and that's where He works. The connection with Jesus is through your skull. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus is a physical man living in your skull, but His energy, His presence, and for you to be able to speak to Him or get to Him or, meet Him, that's in your skull is where the connection is made. The skull is able to make the connection, and wherever Jesus is energetically, He is present, you will be able to receive Him. And if that is the case, then yes, paradise, resides in you. And it is through the paradise that you're going to get your fruit. So your iPhone, your 3-bedroom apartment, your $200,000 job or business, you're going to get through Jesus by trusting in Him and continue to living in the end that you already have that. And you might say, well, isn't that a lie? Because I don't have it right now. How can I then keep telling myself I have it? No, it's not a lie, because it's called faith and it's called trust. When I was 21 and I wanted to become, somebody great, somebody educated, somebody having a real good job, I just trusted and believed in God. I didn't have the job. I didn't have the salary. I was driving a cab, or maybe I was working in a factory. And from a factory, I started to drive a cab, and then I went to university after I got the night school. So when I was working in the factory, I simply believed that I am going to be one day a great man. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to have a great job. I'm going to have a great salary, and I won't be doing this job forever. I believed that. Whilst everybody else around me told me, no, this is your life. You're probably going to retire in the factory and like us, and you're probably going to die over here like us. And I said, no, I'm not like you. I'm nothing like you. I'm from a different planet. So forget about it. This idea that you have is false. And no, I am somebody different. So I continue to work in my education system, continue to improve myself, and I knew that I was going to have, one day I was going to produce $100,000 salary. Listen, that's a big shot. You know how big shot that is? I was maybe at that time not earning more than $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month I was earning, and I'm shooting for $100,000. What is that? What is that? You are earning $2,000, right? And you're shooting for $100,000 salary. That is a faith and a half. And with just faith, by the way, that's just faith. I only had faith and trust in God. I just had faith and trust in God and nothing else. Nobody supported me. Nobody encouraged me. I was the one encouraging myself. And maybe you are at that position today. Maybe you're in that position where you're only making $2,000 a month and you want to make $100,000 or more. So you have to trust in yourself. You have to trust in God. Trust in Jesus. If you trust in Jesus and you believe in yourself, then it doesn't matter what people around you are saying. Yeah, your 3D might be, hey, but you're driving a cab. That's your 3D. Or maybe your 3D is you're working in a factory. Or maybe your 3D is you're working in a restaurant, some evening job. Doesn't matter what your 3D tells you. Who cares? My 3D told me I was working in a factory. Hey, you're working in a factory. How are you going to get a $100,000 job? I'm going to do it. I believe it. I didn't care about my 3D. I denied my 3D. I rejected my 3D. You have to reject your 3D. Just as Jesus said, that He will prune you to produce fruit. And you have to abide in Him. He is the energy. He has the powerful energy that can produce that result that you desire. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abides in me, and I in him, the same brings much fruit. The same brings forth much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. And okay, I may not have known Jesus when I was 21. Maybe I got to know Him a little later. But I believed in God. I trusted in God, the unseen God. And then God met me. I believed in Him. I knew that God will speak to me one day. I just trusted myself. I knew that God can speak to me. And then Jesus spoke to me one day. So I was right. And you can be right. Just because you're 3D today doesn't show you that you're earning $50,000 a month, but you desire to, but your goal is to earn $50,000 a month. So what? Many people are today earning $50,000 a month. And sure, it may take a little effort. It may take a effort in the sense of you speaking your affirmations maybe, or maybe you doing visualization. Yeah, but continue to tell yourself, remember the word that is in you. What is that word? Mental conversation. Your mental conversation has to be what? That phone, $1,200 phone with taxes is a nice phone. That's a nice price. I can afford it. That's what you got to keep telling yourself. And you got to keep hearing in your head that either your wife or your cousin or whoever you're close to, they keep telling you, hey, whatever your name is, I'm not gonna name names, but let's just use the name John. They say, John, that's a lovely iPhone that you have, and you keep hearing it in your head. John, you have a lovely iPhone 16. John, you have a lovely iPhone 16, and you say, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. John, you have a lovely iPhone 16. Yes, thank you. That is what you got to keep hearing. And same with your salary. If you desire to earn $200,000 a month, don't think to yourself, oh, nobody in my family is earning $200,000. Who cares about your family? You are not answerable to your family. You are answerable only to God. So what do? You keep believing and you keep hearing in your head. And if your name is John, no offense to you, if your name is John, then people might say to you, John, you have a fantastic job, $200,000, wow. And you say, yes, thank you. And somebody else says to you, John, you made your $200,000 salary, wow. And if you're John, you say, yes, thank you. You keep hearing it in your head over and over every day. You got to keep hearing that. John, you have a $200,000 job, wow. Yes, thank you. John, you made it. Yes, I did. These are the different voices that you have to be hearing. If you hear those voices every day, that's called mental conversation. If in your mental conversation every day you keep hearing this voice that you have made it, that you got your $1 million business, that you got your $10 million in your bank, that you got your $200,000 job, whatever it is. I'm just throwing out figures. But you can decide the figures. You have to decide the figures for yourself. And if you decided the figures for yourself and you keep telling yourself in your mental conversation, that is the most powerful form of manifesting. The most powerful and the most quickest form of manifesting is mental conversation. By the way, 70,000 thoughts every day. Think about it. That could be 70,000 affirmations. I think that I have made myself very clear in where could be that you are maybe going wrong. Maybe it's your mental conversation that you need to fix. And if you can fix your mental conversation, you are going to get to your desire very fast. So I will encourage you today to think about where you are and maybe look at your mental conversation. Even though you've decided to make $200,000 a year or more, but your mental conversation says, how are you going to do it? But no, you're not doing it. No, you don't have it. Then you got to fix your mental conversation. Once you fix your mental conversation, is it very hard to hear in your head? Hey, you made it. Hey, you're making $200,000 a year. Wow. Is that too hard to hear that? Make it up. Make it up as you go along. It's not too hard. Convince yourself. You have to convince yourself. Listen, I had to convince myself back in the day. I had to convince myself that I'm capable and I'm deserving and I'm worthy of having a $100,000 job, and I made it. Back then when I had a $100,000 job, you know how much money it was in the UK? £60,000, and I was exactly on £60,000 salary in UK. I made the 100,000 because at that time dollar was 1.4 or 1.5 near there to the pound. So it's possible. If I, coming from slumdog land, let's call it slumdog land, because I was working in a factory, and then I was working cab and going to school and university. So I was in the slumdog land, and from slumdog land, okay, so I didn't make a millionaire because I would have become a millionaire easy. But you know what happened? I found God. That's what happened to me. I found God, and I decided to divert my attention to God and withhold the millions for the moment. Hold the millions for the moment, but seek God first. So I decided to seek God first with all my heart, but worry about the millions later. So that's what happened to me. And so, meeting God was amazing. And I got my $100,000 salary as well at the time. So making the million won't be too difficult. I will make the million as well. It's only a matter of time. Sure, we all go through hardships. We all go through problems. I'm not saying we don't. We all do. Just as you are going through different problems, I'm going through different problems, or maybe going through different problems. But this is just 3D. I'm going to keep telling myself that I'm the next millionaire in my family. I don't care about problems. I trust in God. I've given 25 years of my life to God, but now I need to give some life to myself to make that millions as well. So I'll continue to study, and it doesn't mean I put God to one side. God is still there for me. He's still there to help me. I continue to trust in God. I continue to trust in the Lord Jesus, the Master Jesus, Yeshua. I continue to trust in Him. I believe that He will make it happen for me. I've just got to continue to push forward, and it will come through. Continue to believe, continue to trust, continue to tell myself, continue to encourage myself. Because like before, I had nobody to encourage me. It's the same today. I've got nobody to encourage me. Nobody's telling me and cheering me on to become a millionaire. I've got to cheer myself on. I have to cheer myself on. I have to stand in front of the mirror and cheer myself on. And I encourage you to do the same. I'm cheering you on, I'm encouraging you, and I want you to also encourage yourself. So thank you for listening to this lecture. I'm hoping that this time I did shut down the amplifier, voice amplifier, or the sound booster, and the voice should be much clearer this time. But please do let me know if there was any voice issues, that we may fix those at the outset. Thank you. Have a wonderful Sabbath. Oh, and look after yourself. And please, one more thing, make sure that you have 1 month, at least 1 month of provisions for yourself. Essentials. Food that you like to eat. Essentials. Why I say that is because with all these tariffs going on, the tariffs, the taxes, the wars, there may be possibility that we may not get sufficient food on our shelves in the big stores. So beware that might be coming, because it is stated that 35% of imports have been reduced by 35%. That means food that comes from China is down by 35%, and that's food that Walmart puts in on its shelves and other big stores put on their shelves. So beware. Don't get caught out. Keep the essentials in your home. As long as you have some essentials that you eat, if you like to eat rice or bread, make sure you have enough of it for a month. Eggs, enough for a month. Then you're good to go. Look after yourselves. May the Lord bless you and keep you safe and safeguard you. I wish you a happy Sabbath and a shalom shalom to you.